This Star Trek episode proves how much Voyager needs Janeway as captain. When Star Trek Voyager premiered in 1995, it brought audiences a daring premise. A Starfleet crew stranded 70,000 light-years from home, facing a 75-year journey back to Earth. At the heart of that odyssey was Captain Catherine Janeway, portrayed by Kate Mulgrew, a commanding officer who quickly became one of the most complex and compelling captains in Star Trek history. While every captain has had episodes that define their leadership, Kirk's brashness, Picard's diplomacy, Sisko's determination, Voyager's defining strength has always been Janeway's unique balance of pragmatism and compassion. And there's perhaps no better example of her irreplaceable role than the Season 2 episode Deadlock. On the surface, it's a sci-fi puzzle about duplicated ships and the moral dilemmas that follow. But beneath the technobabble and phaser fire, Deadlock is an hour that highlights exactly why Voyager cannot function without Janeway in the captain's chair. It proves, more than any other story, that she is both the anchor and the soul of the series. The setup: Voyager against itself. Deadlock begins with Voyager traveling through a plasma field, a risky maneuver that leaves the ship battered and its systems compromised. Soon, the crew realizes something astonishing. There are two Voyagers, existing simultaneously in the same space, but out of phase with one another. What follows is a tense, high-stakes standoff as the two ships struggle to survive. One ship is devastated, barely functional, while the other remains intact. The wrinkle? Every action on one ship has consequences for the other. It's a quintessential Star Trek premise. High concept, morally thorny, and deeply reliant on the captain's ability to lead. And it's here that Janeway shines brightest. Janeway, the decision-maker. What sets Janeway apart from other captains is her willingness to confront impossible choices head-on. In Deadlock, she doesn't have the luxury of debating hypotheticals for long. Lives hang in the balance, and hesitation could doom both crews. When faced with the fact that only one Voyager can survive, Janeway immediately assumes responsibility for making the call. She doesn't delegate the burden, nor does she allow the crew to wallow in despair. Instead, she frames the problem as a solvable one, even when the solution comes at her own expense. When the intact Voyager is threatened by the Vidians, Janeway realizes the only way forward is self-sacrifice. She orders the destruction of her ship to ensure the survival of the other. This act is quintessential Janeway. Ruthless pragmatism laced with deep moral conviction. No other captain in Star Trek embodies that duality as effectively. Kirk might gamble his way out, Picard might search for the diplomatic thread, and Sisko might steel himself for wartime necessity. But Janeway combines all three approaches, adding a maternal protectiveness toward her crew that makes her decisions uniquely resonant. The emotional core of Deadlock. What makes this episode a definitive showcase of Janeway's necessity is not just the decision itself, but the emotional weight behind it. Mulgrew plays Janeway as calm, resolute, and utterly unwilling to let fear dictate her actions. Even as her ship crumbles, she projects an aura of confidence that keeps the crew together. The defining moment comes when the two Janeways meet across the phase barrier. Neither blinks, neither falters, they instantly understand each other. It's a brilliant metaphor for Janeway's internal strength. Even when faced with a mirror of herself, she is unwavering. The captain knows what must be done, and she trusts herself to carry it out. For the crew, this is vital. Stranded so far from Federation space, Voyager lacks the safety net of Starfleet's resources or reinforcements. The crew has only one constant: Janeway. Episodes like Deadlock prove that her steadiness is the glue holding them together. Without Janeway, Voyager collapses. To understand why Deadlock proves Voyager needs Janeway, imagine the series without her leadership. If Chakotay were in charge, his pragmatic but less decisive nature might leave the crew divided in moments of crisis. Tuvok, though brilliant, often lacks the empathetic touch that keeps morale alive. Even the Doctor, Seven of Nine, or Paris, characters who later grow into leaders, are simply not ready during these early years. Janeway is the bridge between Starfleet ideals and survivalist necessity. Without her, the Delta Quadrant would consume Voyager in weeks. The Kazon, the Vidians, even the Borg, none of these threats would be navigable without her unshakable command presence. Deadlock dramatizes this by forcing her into a situation where only her decisiveness ensures the continuation of the journey. The broader legacy of Janeway's leadership, Deadlock, also encapsulates Janeway's long-term influence on the crew. Every member of Voyager learns from her, consciously or not. Her refusal to compromise Federation principles, even in the Delta Quadrant, creates a moral framework that sustains them. Yet her willingness to bend rules when survival demands it instills adaptability. This balance shapes characters like Seven of Nine, who learns humanity through Janeway's mentorship, and Tom Paris, who evolves from a rebellious pilot into a responsible officer under her guidance. Even Chakotay, who initially questions her decisions, comes to respect her unwavering vision. The episode is not just about a duplicate ship, it's about a duplicate leader, and it reminds the audience that there is no substitute for Janeway. You can copy the ship, you can copy the crew, but you cannot replicate the captain's essence. Why this story resonates beyond Voyager. From a meta perspective, Deadlock also proves why Voyager as a series depends so heavily on Janeway. Unlike other Star Trek shows, which feature more ensemble-driven storytelling, Voyager orbits tightly around its captain. Kirk, Picard, and Sisko each had strong crews who could carry storylines independently, but Voyager consistently returns to Janeway as its gravitational center. This isn't a weakness, it's a design choice. Stranded so far from Starfleet, the crew doesn't have the luxury of questioning command structures too deeply. They rely on Janeway as both leader and symbol. Without her, Voyager risks becoming not just lost in space, but lost narratively, a captain who bears the weight. Ultimately, Deadlock is more than just a clever sci-fi story, it's a meditation on leadership. The two Voyagers represent two possible fates, survival or destruction. Janeway embodies the fulcrum between them, the one who ensures that, even in the darkest hour, the crew will endure. In choosing sacrifice, she doesn't just save lives. She preserves the ideals of Starfleet itself. She demonstrates that leadership is not about survival at any cost, but about ensuring the survival of principles alongside people. And that is what makes Janeway indispensable. Conclusion: Janeway is Voyager's North Star. Every great Star Trek captain has a defining moment that encapsulates their leadership. For Janeway, Deadlock stands as one of the clearest examples. It proves that without her, Voyager is just a starship adrift, doomed to collapse under the weight of the Delta Quadrant's challenges. With her, however, the crew has not just a chance of survival, but a guiding light, someone who embodies the best of Starfleet while adapting to the harshest of circumstances. In the end, Deadlock isn't just a story about two Voyagers, it's a story about one captain, and why she can never be duplicated. For Voyager, there is no journey home without Catherine Janeway. Would you like me to expand this by comparing Deadlock to other Janeway-centered episodes like Scorpion or Year of Hell to show a broader pattern of why she's irreplaceable, or keep the focus tightly on just this one episode? About two Voyagers, it's a story about one captain, and why she can never be duplicated. For Voyager, there is no journey home without Catherine Janeway. Would you like me to expand this by comparing Deadlock to other Janeway-centered episodes like Scorpion or Year of Hell to show a broader pattern of why she's irreplaceable, or keep the focus tightly on just this one episode?